Okay, so here we go for our video for page 10. So page 10, you are just going to need 3 of your vocab word pieces of paper. You're going to need temperature with this photo glued in. Oh, so that's 9, this is 10. Let me get that zoomed in a little bit better. There we go. You're going to need melting point and freezing point. So you're going to need those 3. So pause the video and go ahead and go find those now. And then we will get started. Okay, so now that you have your 3 vocab words, we're going to start with the one for temperature. Let's get that zoomed in. So make sure that you have temperature and you've got this picture ready to go. Okay, so our definition for temperature is a measure, so we can measure something's temperature, of the average, so it means like the middle, or you guys have done averages probably in math already, of the average kinetic energy of the atoms in a system. So that can mean like in a piece of matter, in an object, something like that. So it is used to express, so that means like to describe, to express thermal energy, which remember is a type of kinetic energy, the energy of heat, thermal energy in degrees. Okay, so over here we've got the 3 units that scientists use. Our question, list the 3 units scientists use to measure temperature. So our first one is Celsius. It's an S. Celsius, which is equal to degrees C. That's this one. Degrees C. Then we've got, let's hope I can spell this right, Fahrenheit. Which is a weird word. So probably named after some dead guy. Fachen. Sounds like maybe German. Fahrenheit. Which is what we mostly use for like our weather, which is in degrees Fahrenheit. So it's this one in the middle. And then we've got kelvins. So kelvins are what scientists use in like labs for extreme temperatures, like absolute 0. And kelvins are measured in degrees Kelvin, or in kelvins, but they don't have a degree symbol, so they're just a K. So your next task is to name one thing with a very high temperature and one thing with a very low temperature. So high should be easy. I bet you can think of one really big, bright, shiny thing that has a really high temperature. And one thing with a very low temperature. So you got to fill in those blanks. Google them. Something with a very high temperature. Something with a very low temperature. Pick something that's interesting to you. Describe how this picture represents the word. So the picture ... That one's going to go at the top. The next word we're going to look at is melting point. So once you've gotten this one finished, I'm going to pause it right here. Make sure that's all done. My alarm's going off. It's telling me I need to be done with that word. Then we'll move on to melting point. Great, you're back for melting point. Okay, this is a nice short definition. So a melting point is the temperature. Oh, there comes that word back. temperature at which a solid turns into a liquid. So that is solid to liquid. So I wrote those in blue and red because it goes from the colder thing to the warmer thing. So what is the melting point of water? So in degrees Celsius, it is one thing. And in degrees Fahrenheit, it is one thing. So we have not only written this down before, but we have talked about it, and you can Google it super easily. So describe what happens at the melting point of H2O. What is H2O? It's water. So at water's melting point, so if it has to go from a solid to a liquid, what is it when it starts? Ice, right. Ice turns into the liquid form of ice. Oh, I should have written H2O. At H2O's. H2O. Into water. Oh my God, what is happening right there? So at 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius, you can still have ice and have water at the same time and then both be 32 degrees. So it should describe how this picture represents the word melting point. Go ahead and pause and get caught up on this word and then get ready to move on to freezing point. Okay, we've got freezing point. This definition is also going to be very similar to the last one. The temperature at which a liquid turns into a solid. So we're going to go liquid to solid. So again, I wrote them in red and blue so that you can remember which one is hotter and which one's colder. So what is the freezing point of water? In degrees Celsius, in degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, describe what happens at the freezing point of H2O. At H2O's freezing point. Okay, so it starts out as a liquid. What is H2O as a liquid? Water, right. Water turns into a solid. What's solid water called? Ice. Okay, so describe how my picture might represent the word for freezing point. So we've got the freezing point of water, and that says the temperature at which water changes from a liquid to a solid. It's got a couple of degrees there. So what you're going to do next is you're going to get this stuff glued in, and you're going to get it glued in precisely where I put it. Precisely or exactly means there needs to be, you need to follow the directions carefully because you're going to need a little bit of room to make an observation. So at the top, we're going to glue in temperature. Make sure that you glue that in all the way at the top. Then you're going to get melting point glued in directly under melting point. Make sure that you don't overlap them. I want to be able to see all of your work. And then freezing point, you're going to get glued in at the very bottom. So you're going to notice that I am intentionally, that means on purpose, leaving a gap between melting point and freezing point. And you're thinking, Miss Hopebot, you only told me to get 3 papers. That is right. That's because in between here, we're going to make an observation about melting point and freezing point. So what do you notice about the melting point and the freezing point of this example, water? That happens at the same temperature. So melting points and freezing points of matter occur, well, that means happen, at the same temperature. That's a period. So what do we notice is happening? What's the difference then? Well, one's going from solid to liquid, one's going from liquid to solid. So something is being added and something is being taken away. What is it? Heat. So the difference is at melting points, heat is being, okay, you tell me if it's being added or taken away. It's going from a solid to a liquid. Is it getting warmer or colder? Warmer is being added, and at freezing points, heat is being taken away, because it must be the opposite. So make sure you can pause and get that written in there. It's really important to remember that heat is not like disappearing, it's just going into the air, or it's coming from the air. So when it's being added, it's just coming from the area around it. And when it's being taken away, it's going into the area around that matter. So once you get that page done, go ahead and